Alright everybody, we're back into this rating tier. Let's talk about P5. This is a week 1 clear. Actually, this is Wednesday of that week, so strats are going to change. But wanted to get this out there to start showing how I'm mitigating, how I'm processing these, so that way you can get some really quick clears. Initial boss is just going to pull them in and then run north, keep them locked in the center as best you can. This boss is going to jump around all over the place, so positioning is just a pain in this fight. There's 2 big AoE hits you need to talk about with your co-tank. One is Sonic Howl, the other one is Ruby Glow. Ruby Glow seems to be the one that needs the more mitigation, so I'm going to save my Shake It Off for that. But you'll notice that during the fight, me and the other tank are going to try to swap reprisals and make sure we're covering a lot of them. Look for opportunities where you can use a reprisal on 2 AoEs at once. The timing works out well, like on the first one. If you put a reprisal at the end, you should be able to catch both the Ruby and the Sonic. For Ruby 1, pull straight to the corner. You got to get quick at identifying those as a tank. It's one of the big things of this fight is knowing where to position this boss when you do have to position him. So grab it and pull it in. I'm sure there's going to be some melee uptime tactics that are going to change later on. If you're taking this first tank buster, I recommend running just straight out of the corner. You have a clear run at it, you can get right through the hitbox, everyone's already clustered in the back, and you should be good to drop it. You'll note during this fight, I'm kind of splitting up my single mitigations. One is if I'm taking the first hit of the tank buster, I'm using some of my lighter mitigations. Rampart, Thrill of Battle, Bloodwetting if it's up, as always. The reason is I'm not going to be taking auto attacks after that, so as long as I survive that initial hit and I can get back up to full life, I should be good. For the second hit of the tank busters, it's almost always saving my 30% vengeance for that. I'd recommend that for other tanks to mitigate heavier if you're taking that second hit. We missed Puddles there for a second while I was talking, but for Puddles, do not be afraid to step in and get a little bit of damage. It's better not to wipe the party, and you likely will wipe the party during Prog if you're not in your Puddles. So just be safe, but don't try to get in last minute. As you can see, the tank swap on the way back. I did pick it back up and use Vengeance at that time. Once again, we're talking about another big hit. Shake It Off is up. Just toss it out there. Not much to do on this particular Ruby Glow mechanic. In this fight, we are on the safe side, so we don't have to worry too much about it. If you're on the unsafe side and you have to run through it, just run straight through that AoE. It's going to be fine. You have plenty of time to get it out. Fun fact is, the boss's hitbox is active as they dash back and forth, so you can actually keep your uptime and melee him as he drives by. Just a fun little trick. It feels good to get a fell cleave off on it whenever he's running. As always, just avoid the poison puddles and get ready for the next mechanic. So for this Ruby Glow, I've seen a lot of people in Party Finder initially struggle for it until they kind of get the pattern down. How my thought process works for this is I'm going to watch for that first safe spot. There it is. I immediately move to that square. Now I know where the first 2 things are. I'm not paying attention. Now I'm paying attention again. I'm looking for the one with 1 in it. It's the one over there that I'm facing. So that way, as you can see, I'm keeping the camera aimed that way as long as I need to move in it. You'll notice I'm very, very camera focused when it comes to movement. If I know I have to move or stage activity later on in the fight, I'm pointing my camera there so that way I have a clear line and I know exactly where I'm going to go. That way I can focus on my DPS or mitigations, look at the other stuff, keep up on healing and look at the boss's HP, and I don't have to pay too much attention. I just know whenever the mechanic goes off just to run. Back at the tail end of the boss, this is the stack spread mechanic. Really nothing too much here. The thing that I would say very, very clearly on this is that once you do your healer stacks, or the second mechanic, really the second of the stacker spread like this, that goes off really late, it feels. So don't run out like everyone is tempted to do. Also, whenever you're a tank in the light parties or in the spreads, just stand there, and that way, whenever you're on a cardinal position, you'll trigger the front and back right here. As you can see, the boss is a little bit off kilter here on this one, in just a slight way. It can make things a little bit difficult if melee aren't paying attention and they're very close up in, and they want to get their flank or rear attacks in. So try to keep them facing in one of those directions as best you can. This is Devour. There's really not much to say here. It's all individual movement. So for the most part, just pick the strategy you like. We're using the updated strategy that Hector posted on his video. I recommend that one a lot. Really, I think it's a nice clear movement. We're using the invuln strategy. So as the main tank at the time, I'm invulning here. Off tank is floating to a different spot. That can be a little bit difficult for the off-tank at this time to identify those. The more you're in this fight, the more you're going to see that there are some good opportunities to pre-stage if you know someone's traditionally dying to the puddles and not getting in their place, and you can cover for them. A tank can float and fill in for one spot. That way the other puddles all have a pair, and then the one tank that's in folding should be fine. Didn't need it this time, thank goodness. This is just another situation for pre-positioning. You get there as soon as you can and just set up shop, getting your puddles. What you should be thinking as a tank right now is, let's look at the puddles and watch where this cleave is coming from. We got lucky this time. This was a the reflected one, so we're gonna have a big space to take this next tank buster over here. If you're unlucky, you're gonna get in that corner up there in the upper right of the screen there, that little tiny sliver. And if you are the main tank at that time and are about ready to take the big AoE tank buster hit with cleave, you got to get out of there quick. So being ready and on point with sprint and just ready to run straight through the boss and make it to that clear lane, that's what you have to do. We didn't get it in this fight, but it came up quite a bit during proc. Again, another Ruby Glow. Like the later half of this fight is not mechanic heavy when it comes to movement or mitigations. You're just repeating the same stuff over and over again once you find a good rhythm for yourself. Your healers can also advise you a bit on when you should be mitigating more or less, but as a warrior, you can tend to self-heal enough to manage through just about anything. You can actually take some of those tank busters without mitigations. If you take a single hit, I don't recommend it though. It is very risky. For this mechanic, just the cleanest stack that you can get, so moving as quickly as you can to that healer compression and then stepping in the middle. Good puddles in a nice spot, just make everything look nice. Whole lot easier to manage it if everyone stacks up just the way you like it. So here the boss is not quite centered over the middle, and I feel like that probably contributed to our DPS dying there. Yeah, do your best to get him in the middle. He resets so often that it's usually not a problem, but I found that if he's not quite in the middle versus a little slightly off-centered, the ones where he's not quite in the middle are the ones that typically provide the most deaths. But it should be fairly easy to kind of lock him into a direction if you always just kind of stand on the way markers. Yeah, we're proceeding towards the end game of the fight. I'm thinking I might just move over towards summarizing because the rest of the fight's just kind of automatic. The only thing to worry about here is to watch that puddle pattern and make sure that you're not going to take anything in the wrong spot. But for the most part, you're just going to run on autopilot, a couple more tank swaps, a couple more of the repeat mechanics. It's not going to be too bad. If you've made it this far in the fight, you're basically done. So let's just go ahead and talk about... Actually, I do remember in my notes, let's talk about how badly I take this tank buster in a second. So you'll note here, I am not focusing on this. I actually did not voke. So I'm actually killing my off-tank right here. Now, thankfully, we had a lot of DPS in the party. I recommend voking early in the tank busters. Don't do what I did there and just totally forget to do it and do all your other mitigations and set up for it. It just makes you look dumb and it kills your off-tank and everything is just the worst. So on that, let's talk about the summation of the fight. So number one, we want to talk about spreading out those group mitigations. Coordinate with your other tank, work on a reprisal order, make sure you're not throwing down your big group mitigations at the same time. I prefer to save group mitigations, like my big Shake It Off shield, for Ruby Glow, but depending on your prog level, depending on your healer comfort level with the fight, there might suggest some different locations. Oh, look at that, it's almost a perfectly clean cleave there. So disappointed myself, I missed it. For the single mitigation stuff, have two stacks. One is a lighter, one is a heavier, and you should be able to alternate those with tank busters throughout the fight. You're going to need to do that for P5S anyway, so get in the habit of kind of thinking in a structure of, can I have two different clusters of mitigations for tank busters? This fight is all about pre-positioning, so pre-position as early as possible. It helps the movement and it helps the healers and everyone kind of stay organized. Lastly, this boss resets a lot. So don't be afraid if he's cockeyed in a little bit or pointed in a different direction. Just keep them on a cardinal as best you can. As long as you're consistent and your DPS can do their uptime, you should be in good shape. That said, do whatever you can and try to point them up north whenever you can, just because it will make some of the mechanics a little bit easier later on for uptime. Thank you all, and I will see you again in our P5S video. Because this was an early clear this week, I might actually consider going back into this fight in a later video to kind of catch up whenever strategies have changed. And if anything is different, I will let you know. I'm going to post the strats that we used in the comments of this video, or the description at least. That way you can go back and refer to and see, like, is this matching what you're doing in your group? And if not, you'll know where to deviate from this plan. That said, good luck and have a nice day.